All right. Go ahead and share this in a couple groups real quick. Let's see. Cool. So I want to talk to you guys about. So let me share this in some groups for some reason. Okay, that's fine. We'll just do this. We'll do this as public. Probably get a few more people in here anyway. So I want to talk to you guys about, and feel free to chime in if anybody has anything to say about the post I made the other day and the future of the CBD industry and the hemp industry as a whole. So I think there was a lot of confusion and a lot of stuff being taken out of context with some things that I was saying and some things that other people were saying in the post. So I just want to clear up kind of what I mean about how CBD is mostly a fad that is this kind of just going to pass, and why you shouldn't just build your brand around CBD. Okay, so to understand why I'm saying that, we have to go back a little bit and look at when CBD first started trending upwards as an industry and started moving into to an industry as a whole. So when the Farm Bill was passed, that really opened the floodgates for just everybody to come in and join the industry and really make their own products and company. And that's when we started seeing the biggest influx of people talking about CBD, companies starting to come on and creating their own CBD products. And, you know, before that, there was a little traction, but we didn't have kind of a federal landscape, or, you know, there were a few states that allowed CBD, but it wasn't federally legal. It wasn't federally legal to grow hemp. I know we still have some problems with that, but it's, for the most part, it's now every state's on board, and hemp as a whole is starting to become a real industry. So whenever the Farm Bill passed, suddenly we have an influx of thousands of farmers switching over to grow hemp. We have thousands of companies entering the market and creating CBD-based products, and you have to look at it and see, okay, why was it CBD? Why was it not any of these other cannabinoids? And the reality is that's what the genetics really were and are at this point, were CBD heavier strains. So really, it started with a few companies that started producing CBD heavy strains. Charlotte's Web was a big player in the game before the Farm Bill passed. They started producing CBD heavy strains, and after that, it kind of opened the floodgates into, okay, CBD was the main cannabinoid, and now it's starting to become the more understand cannabinoid, the more research cannabinoid. So. But it's not the end-all, be-all of hemp, and that's kind of what I mean by why CBD is going to kind of fade away as more research and more genetic diversity comes into play. So as we start breeding more genetics for high CBG, high CBN, and other minor cannabinoids in general, we'll kind of start to see more trends following those cannabinoids. Similar to CBD, but you have to understand that the cannabis game in general is all about hype, okay? I mean, you can go back to the 70s and 80s and start looking at strains. So you had, at that point, we had a lot of landrace strains like Panama Red, Acapulco Gold. Okay, that's what was really circulating around, and that's what was hot at the time. And as we had more and more genetic diversity, we moved past those landrace strains and started to get more skunk strains. We started to get progressed into more Afghan strains as well. Just all those landrace strains that were bred for specific terp profiles or looks or smells. That's when we started to see more hype on these different strains. So going throughout time, you can kind of just look and see what was the hype strain at that point and what people were pushing. So especially in this last decade or two, it's been definitely a lot more hype on just what I guess the influencers are pushing out in the industry. So you can look at cookies and see what they're a big player in the industry. Okay, you can look and see what they're pushing out, and if you look specifically at the cannabis game, not hemp, but cannabis, you can see, okay, 1 year we have gelato, 1 year we have Granddaddy Perp, 1 year we have, I can't think of any more right now, would have been hot in the last few years. Help me out, guys, if you can think of it. Sorry, I'm just seeing all these comments, so I'll try and get to your questions, or everybody's questions. But anyway, it's all about the different strains that are hyped. Okay, what's popular 1 year is going to be totally different than what's popular the next year. And people that are pushing gelato 1 year aren't going to be able to really push that as much the next year because people don't want to buy that. It's all about hype, and it's all about building hype. James, hybridized strains bred for high THC mostly. Yeah, high THC in the cannabis game has been a big factor. Granddaddy Perp for the rap industry in the early 2000s. Yeah, that's when it was. That's when GDP was big. You also got to look at Girl Scout cookies, all the sherbet strains. Yeah, so all those have been popular in the last decade, and it's kind of the whole Girl Scout line has been super popular, especially in the last few years. That's cookies that started producing that, and so you have a lot of different strains that are based off that lineage. Like gelato, yeah, the gelato and the sherbet strains, those are based off Girl Scout cookies, Thin Mint cookies, Platinum cookies, all those different strains. They're all hyped after a different set of time, okay? You have what's popular 1 year, 1 month, and it moves on through time. So what happens is people that couldn't push those strains, they'll sit on them for however long because it's not what's popular. It's not what people want. It's not what the consumers want, and you have to look and see what consumers want and look ahead of that and be able to actually have the influence to push that. So the same goes, and the point of why I'm saying this in the cannabis industry, so many strains are just a variety of cuts of gelato with a bunch of different names. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. There's a lot of gelato cuts, but like I said, gelato is just is a Girl Scout cut too. Co-ops are in part responsible for the distribution. A big player in the game too, and who's another guy who's really responsible in putting a lot of these strains into the hands of a lot of different growers and nurseries is what's the guy? Kevin Jodrey. So he's been big, and especially in the Humboldt scene. In Northern California and getting in the California scene in general and just getting strains into different hands. So I highly recommend, if nobody's heard of him, to look him up on YouTube. He has a ton of talks about this kind of stuff, about different strain hype, super knowledgeable in the cannabis game, and how he's just kind of pushing genetic diversity into different hands of people to keep it out of big ag. Cookies is all hype. Just visited their booth at the Emerald Cup. Yeah, man, cookies is, see, that's the thing is like, it doesn't even matter if cookies is growing good shit because they have the influence to push out different strains and get those hyped up. So it doesn't even matter what the quality is if it's not going to sell. Okay. It's all hype. And the reason why I want to talk about the cannabis industry is because essentially the hemp industry, because the strain, everything that's floating around is just essentially low THC cannabis. Okay, there's no real industrial hemp being put out. That's a big some big confusion right there. It's kind of just a buzzword. So no hemp really in the market is being used for industrial uses. it's called industrial hemp for Farm Bill compliance, but it's not industrial. Okay, all of the the hemp that's floating around is all low THC cannabis. So while we can look at the cannabis game, you can kind of see more trends and how this is going to affect CBD as well. So CBD is look at it as a strain. Okay, it's been hyped up in 2019. It's starting to lose traction now. That's not to say that the market for CBD is gonna change. Okay, it's just the market share and the market segmentation is gonna be different. It's not gonna be everybody age 18 to 89 is wanting CBD anymore. It's going to be marketed towards different consumer segments. And once you can figure out what those consumer segments are and how to market towards them and capture that market share, you'll be better off. So you can keep a CBD business model, but don't assume that everybody is going to want CBD. Okay, it's going to be for specific types of people and specific types of consumers. So I think coming up on this year, as we start to lose a little bit of hype for CBD, we're starting to gain a little bit of hype for CBG and CBN. So everybody's starting to talk about these new cannabinoids. And as we're able to produce those on a larger industrial scale and get them into the hands of more and more people, that's when we'll start to see more and more hype for the next cannabinoid. And so that's what I mean when I say that CBD is a fad and CBD is starting to wear off. It's not that there's no benefits to CBD, and it's not that hemp or cannabis as a whole is not going to lose traction or become an industry anymore. Okay, the industry is just going to grow even stronger and stronger as time goes on. But CBD as a whole is not. It doesn't need to be your focus. Your only focus going into the next year, next few years. So let me look back at a couple of these comments. Yeah, Kevin's probably one of the most knowledgeable people in the industry. So he's got so many podcasts and talks up right now. He's all over YouTube. He's got his own site. He does a lot of talks all over the place. So kind of look at what he's saying, and then you can follow the same trends with what's going on in hemp. That's what I think, James, is that things are going to swing back to whole plant and full spectrum. So I think we're a few years off. Maybe in the next 2 or 3 years, we'll start to move towards whole plant medicine. But for now, it's just going to be individual cannabinoid hype until that education and that landscape opens up to have that conversation. So the whole point is to jump on these trends before they start to gain their peak hype. If you can be one of the first companies doing things like that, like if you can be one of the first companies hopping on to producing CBG and CBN heavy products, the next hype cannabinoid, okay, you're going to gain that market share before anybody else does. And once you jump in too late, it doesn't matter. Once everybody else is pushing that, okay, you're no different than all the thousands of other companies out there. So you can look at it like I was talking about earlier, the same strains. If you're trying to push CBD isolate or CBD isolate products or CBD heavy products going into 2021, you're going to be way behind the pack. So start looking at the future instead of looking at the past and what everybody else is doing. So that's where I'm coming from with all that. And it's a lot of people wanted to take what I said out of context to mean that CBD is the end all be all of hemp, or CBD is dying as an industry, or hemp is dying as an industry. Okay, that's not at all what it is. You have to kind of look at the market as a whole, and not just the hemp market. And really, there's everybody has such tunnel vision and narrow-mindedness when it comes to hemp as an industry, and are looking at hemp as a medicinal industry versus hemp as an industrial industry. So once we had that manufacturing and processing capacity to switch hemp with paper products, switch hemp with plastic products, and move hemp into home building like hempcrete, hemp insulation. There's so many different industrial uses for hemp, but like I said, people aren't growing fiber hemp. People aren't growing hemp for industrial use. They're growing hemp for medicinal use. Um, yeah, man, that's the thing is people are going to be blasted for promoting. Like I'm going to get, there's so much controversy and I'm going to get hate for saying this too. Um, is that, yeah, it's going to move towards whole plant medicine. It's just, you have to jump on the hype before we get there. Anyone manufacturing and marketing CBD products needs a, yeah, I agree. There are so many people coming into this industry too with so little business sense and so little marketing sense. They think that it's just, grab a bottle of CBD oil and slap a label on it and it'll sell. Okay, maybe you can sell a couple bottles of it, but you're not going to build a real business doing that. And CBD is just thrown around so much that it's kind of some people are sick of hearing the word CBD because it's been one of the hottest topics of 2019. Okay, there are so many gimmicky products that have come out to the marketplace, so many useless products, so much misinformation, fake products that people are pushing and selling that have no CBD at all or have little medicinal value at all, that have so little CBD. So once education really reaches a point where consumers are more knowledgeable, it's going to take some time. It's going to take several years and a generation of education until we get to that point. Yeah, and hemp is a commodity, and CBD is a commodity. That's it. At the end of the day, it's a commodity, and you can look at pricing too. Okay, pricing is dropping so rapidly right now on all hemp products, just because that's how it works. That's how commodities are. It's some commodities are totally controlled by supply and demand, and once you add value to that commodity or do a value addition to that commodity, and I have a couple posts up on what exactly that means. That's when things start to change. Okay, it's not selling CBD should not be a race to the, or selling hemp should not be a race to the bottom. The goal is to not have the lowest price out there, because that benefits nobody. What do I think will happen first? Medical marijuana in Wisconsin or federal legalization in the US? I think it's largely going to depend on, does Wisconsin even have a bill in the works right now for medical? I think it's largely going to depend on the next election and how this next election cycle goes. That really is going to determine what the federal outlook of medical marijuana looks like in the US. So it's hard to say. Yeah, I haven't even kept up with Wisconsin a ton, honestly. So I can't say for sure when they'll legalize. But yeah, I think it's going to be down to the states, honestly. The federal government hasn't really intervened a lot lately in the last few years with states that have been legalizing. It's been mostly they've let them kind of do their own thing. Of course, that brings in a lot of issues just with each state has kind of their own market, but maybe that's how it should be, Yeah, decriminalization is really the key here. Deschedule cannabis and decriminalize it, and then let the states kind of decide. But legalization and recreational legalization, you can look at California and what Prop 64 did to the market, and it totally just destroyed it. And the same thing, they're trying to push the similar bill in Oklahoma right now. So Oklahoma has a thriving medicinal market right now. And they've opened it up to where there's not a ton of regulation of who can come in and open up companies. Okay, they've kind of opened it up to just about anybody that has a little bit of money, but not, you don't need to be a multi-millionaire to open up a cannabis business in Oklahoma. But they're trying to do something similar in Oklahoma with California did with Prop 64. And vertical integration, yeah. So whoever controls the most of the supply chain, the more that you can control the supply chain, the more power you have in the industry, the more profit you have, the more you can keep afloat too. So it's going to be capturing that supply chain as well. If you can basically be a seed to shelf company, then you're going to be golden, because then you control your whole supply, you control your whole you control your margins, your profits. You don't have to really rely on the rest of the market. Bayer will own cannabis. That's what Bayer and Monsanto. Unfortunately, that's going to be the play. Really, is it's going to be the big ag companies are already trying to take control, and that's something I was saying earlier about Kevin Jodrey, is that he saw that coming as well. Is that all these big ag companies are trying to consolidate and control the market, and so a lot of what he did was, as soon as he got these new cuts of whatever it was, he would push it out into the hands of as many people as he could. Because once big ag owns these genetic trademarks on different strains, okay, that's when it's not going to be good for everybody else. I mean, just look at what they've done with the rest of the ag industry. Decriminalizing or delisting THC. Why do you think decriminalizing or descheduling would ruin small business? If anything, that's just going to help small business, because legalization has its own problems, and legalization in a lot of states is ruining small business. It only allows the big players to come in. Sorry, I'm trying to get all these comments, answer everybody's questions. Entire business model is based on a strong supply side infrastructure primarily. That's where the money is in the industry right now. It's not necessarily retail or farming. It's in all the ancillary businesses. Okay, that's who's making money in cannabis and hemp, is all the ancillary businesses and people that control, different sections of the supply chain. Yeah, big ag basically owns big pharma, and they're trying to basically own cannabis and consolidate it into big cannabis and big hemp. But that just comes down to that all has to do with the political landscape. So politics has everything to do with cannabis and hemp. And if you're not involved with politics, or just think that it doesn't have anything to do with it, then you're wrong. Okay, you have to be super involved with your local politicians and on a state and local level, state, local, and federal level, because that determines the future of the industry. Because that's all cannabis has ever been. It's for the last 90, 100 years. That's what it's been, is blacklisted because of politics. All right. Anybody else have any other questions for me before I get off here? Just wanted to give my thoughts on a few things. Like I said earlier, I mean, going into this year and next year, don't look at CBD as the end all be all of hemp. Don't focus your business around CBD or have that be your sole brand, because it's not. CBD is an ingredient for your final product. Advocacy over activists. We need we need that. We need lobbying. We need people to be involved, and we need education. First, it comes down to breaking the stigma, and I think CBD has been good for that, with just changing the stigma of cannabis. But I think what it's also done has demonized THC a little bit more as well, because so many people are focusing on how CBD is not it's not get you high, and so by pushing CBD so much, we've kind of demonized THC a little bit more, which we're kind of regressing in that point. But it all comes down to education, yeah. And once consumers and the general public are educated just a little bit more about how cannabis and hemp is used as medicine and industrial uses for hemp, then we'll start to see things change. But it doesn't just happen with one person. It's got to be all of us, and it's got to be a collective effort. So, we're all in this industry together, so we have to work together at the end of the day. All right, guys, I'm going to hop off here. I'm going to upload this on YouTube too. So if anybody wants to catch this later and see what I was talking about earlier, I will post it in the group and post it on my page. So thanks for everybody that hopped on and asked a couple questions, and I'll see you later.